All right, guys, I have some friends that I met locally in Solana Beach that they don't really live here full time. They're all over the world, spreading the message on liver health and how we need to love our liver and why, and how they do liver scans and what are the nutrients that we need to help support our liver. And if you do have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. We'll go into that. And also I want to dive into oxidative stress. And I would love to go down rabbit holes on how does this happen? Why does this happen? What are some signs and symptoms? But let's work backwards to look at the root causes of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and make sure we understand what it is and the mechanism of action and all things nutritional therapy, as well as lifestyle habits to improve it. So let me share my screen while we wait for Siggi to come on the show. What is NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? We'll learn more from Siggi, but the condition where excessive fat builds up in the liver of individuals who consume little or no alcohol. That's what it used to be. I think it's changed a little bit. It's various liver conditions ranging from simply fatty liver to non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, NASH, which involves liver inflammation. And we'll talk about all this with one of our experts. And obesity and insulin resistance is what I want to go into. And metabolic syndrome, genetics, what do they play a role in? And nutrition, diets high in sugars, refined carbohydrates, and healthy fats contribute to development and progression of NAFLD. And lack of physical activity and sedentary behaviors can increase risk, and type 2 diabetes, PCOS, sleep apnea, increased risk. So what about insulin resistance? As we started in the beginning, obesity is a major risk factor, but as I keep trying to go into, chronic stress plays a role in everything, and insulin resistance plays a crucial role in the development of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and how this can be associated with metabolic syndrome, obesity, hypertension, insulin resistance, dyslipidemia. But what if you are fit and healthy on the inside out, but you are living life as a race? How does chronic stress relate to any of this? How does chronic stress, not acute stress, play a role in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? I always want to know that, as well as, of course, the vagus nerve is always looking at the role of the vagus nerve and the connection of chronic stress to sympathetic dominance. Parasympathetic is rest and digest, and we'll go into that a little bit, how if we're in sympathetic dominance, does this play a role at all? And then we'll talk about de-liver-ance. It's ingredients designed with herbs, roots, and extract to help you be your best self every day. So with that, we'll go into talking about liver health, and their product is not just de-liver-ance, but also looking at the role of your liver and how they can test and not guess if you have a healthy liver or not. How we can play a role in our future self by creating healthy liver, but not just treating the liver. We need to look at our foundations, right? So not just supplementing another supplement, but you still need to always start with the foundations of working on improving liver health by working on sleep and stress and movement throughout the day and all that. We talk about the holistic approach. So let me know your questions. I'll bring on Siggi, the founder of the liver scan testing and their company, de-liver-ance. I got to say that right, de-liver-ance. And he'll tell us all about it. Okay, I have Siggi to talk about liver health and how to improve our liver health, because I'm all about doing what we can do now at a younger age so we're our best self and living in our prime when we're 80. That's my new mission. When we're 89 years old, We should be in our prime, not be struggling. And so, Siggi, I wanted you to come on the show. It's been a year talking to get you to talk about the liver clinic and de-liver-ance. And I appreciate you making time in your busy, busy, busy travel schedule to share your passion and purpose. And tell us a
Yeah,
little bit
absolutely. Pleasure to
about
be here.
you. Go for it. Tell us about your why. What's your drive in this liver world?
Cool. So my why is advancing the future of liver health and changing people's whole health from basically poor health to good health, or more importantly, preventing bad health. So, in liver
Yeah.
health is the area that I've dedicated my life to, and my company, and all of our focus. And it comes from a personal story. I lost some loved ones to liver disease, and that really, well, that drove me into phytomedicine development 28 years ago. And then along the way, losing more to specifically liver cancer and cirrhosis drove me on what my mission is. And that is very much, I think, one of the great forms of alchemy is taking a negative and turning it into a positive. It's one of the
Mhm.
reasons like our hero product de-liver-ance is because is called de-liver-ance. Yes, it has liver in the middle of it, but more importantly, the word is such great meaning because it's to take you from evil to good. So that is my why is improving liver health, trying to prevent liver deaths, make the liver famous, bring awareness to that. And we're definitely, and I'm sure you've seen it. If not, it's fantastic. Simon Sinek does this fantastic TED talk on why, and we're
Mhm.
definitely a why brand and a why company, and I'm a why person. I start with the soul and spirit behind what we're doing, and then phytomedicine is one of the hows, and
Mhm.
the what at the end is us scanning and the products we make and all of that as well. But it's the why is so important in everything we do. You know, even if it's something is like if you were to think about it like exercising, right? Are you doing it? A lot of people's why for maybe exercising is because they want to look better. It could be ego driven, or it could be, but some people want better health span, or better lifespan, or they don't want to get sick or whatever. So the why is always important in everything we do.
Mhm.
That's why you should, when you cook, you should always cook with love, because that transmutes into the food and it makes the food taste better. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is we talked a lot about, I'll do a follow-up on this little deeper dive into the role of the liver. But as you said, you lost family members. And always go, as you just talked about the word why. Why, how does our liver get just so broken?
So the liver is this incredible organ. It's a master organ, and it is in Chinese medicine, it's called the general of the body because it controls so many other organs and functions. There's no organ in the body that's more complex. The liver has 500 vital functions, and the liver also has thousands of other functions that it does. The enzymatic responses it has are in the thousands. And even with as cutting edge sciences we have today, we're still learning more about the liver along the way. And as the liver controls so many things, master of your immune system, it's the most important organ for longevity. It is the most important organ for skin and hair health. It is so complex that we can't replicate it with technology. You have if you lose your heart and keep you alive mechanically, you can get a mechanical heart or dialysis for kidneys and lungs for lungs, etc. But the liver is so complex that it can't be replicated with mechanics. And one of the reasons that I think that we don't know a lot about the liver, and most of the public doesn't know, most people don't even know exactly where it is, let alone what it does or how important it is. And that's because you don't feel a lot what's happening with the liver. And generally, they call liver disease a silent killer because you don't have a lot of symptoms until you've got problems. And the liver, when you go and get your yearly physical, the only things that a doctor will do to check your liver is, if you're laying on the bed and they pull your shirt up and they're kind of pushing around in your stomach, your tummy, that's the old school way to feel if your liver's stiff or soft, and they can tell if you've got a liver issue. And then they do a liver panel. You'll get your standard blood panel done every year. They check kidney function, they check immune system, and they check liver panel. But the markers that come up on a liver panel, and that's very much true, is if those are elevated, you've already got an issue. So it's a lagging indicator, right? And
Mm.
in functional medicine and root cause medicine, it's all ahead of that. And you were
Mhm.
saying like want to have a great like be really healthy at 80 because in life we have what's commonly referred to as lifespan, right? How long we live. But I think more importantly is actually your health span. How much of that is healthy? Living
Mhm.
to 80 is fantastic, but if you spend the last 10 years chronically ill or sick, that's not really a life worth living to a degree. So
Yeah.
whilst we push the needle forward in biotechnology and health and in science for lifespan, the health span is more important, I think, because you want a healthier life to do that. You want to be at 80, have great memory recall, running around, spend time with your family, doing all those things. And the best way to achieve that is preventative medicine and functional medicine, because you can't be, in your late 70s and say, oh, I wish I would have done this and this and this. A lot of it's already been done. Damage could be done or how you took care of yourself. One good thing about the liver is that the liver is a very forgiving organ, and that's because of its regenerative capabilities. The liver is the only organ in the body that fully regenerates. No organ does that. Three organs regenerate, and that's your intestinal wall lining, because it's constantly dealing with stuff, and your skin, but it doesn't fully regenerate. And the liver, you could have up to 90% of it battered or beat up or damaged, and that could go back to normal. And whether, like you're saying, whether you're 80 years old or 8 years old, the average age of your liver is about 3. This is refreshing so much that the average cell age is 3, doesn't really get older than 10 years. Most of it is, probably, minutes. And your liver does most of its regeneration whilst we sleep. So it's really important to do. So that's kind of a short snippet of the liver's the hero here.
Yes.
And we're trying to, make the hero famous and give the hero what it needs.
Well, as a FDN practitioner, we say we're health investigators, and I'm trying to get people to test and not guess before you have problems, as you're saying. We'll talk about your liver scan, correlate that with blood chemistry markers, maybe organic acids test, a GI test, food sensitivity. I mean, look at the whole picture. And ideally, I'm trying to get people to do that before, as you said, they have symptoms or feeling, sluggish or can't sleep, whatever's going on. But as you said, it's kind of a silent killer. So we should be health optimizers and getting testing done. You could tell us, once, twice a year, so we can stay ahead of having these diseases. It's just crazy that we could do something now. So, but talk about how we can test and not guess if we're staying healthy with their
So
liver.
there's, keeping conscious and knowledge. And I always say that the first step and the most important step of being healthy is just being conscious, right? Conscious of what we're feeling, what our body's trying to tell us, what we're eating, what we're drinking, what toxins we're putting on our body, how our sleep is. I mean, the most important thing for health is sleep. The thing that will cause the most damage to you is lack of sleep, right? Sleep is key. And number two, I always say, is stress. Stress, it causes more damage and more heart attacks probably and aging probably than anything, and then you go down the line of things that are that. But I think you have to look at the body holistically, and the liver is a great example of that, because the liver affects everything, right? So it creates all the bile acids that breaks fatty acids down so you can digest. There's a lovely two-way street between the intestines and the gut and the liver and how they work together. If your liver's under stress, you can start to have kidney problems. If your liver's under a lot of stress, you'll start gaining weight. You'll start gaining liver fat. And there's a direct pathway between fatty liver disease and cognitive function, right? Most people would think, how could a fatty liver affect my ability to think? And that's an irrefutable fact, that fatty liver or liver damage can not only affect your cognitive ability, right? That's how quick we think, memory recall. That's why one of the first symptoms of fatty liver disease is brain fog. And it's very easy to miss because we can blame brain fog on a lot of other things, but 95 out of 100 people wouldn't even correlate. Well, how could my liver having fat affect my ability to think? It does tremendously. And in turn, if your liver function goes down, you can actually develop, or it's even under stress or not functioning as well, you can get toxicity in the brain that could actually cause brain damage, especially with like ammonia buildup, right? So the liver's touching everything, and for optimal health, we need to be looking at everything, right? Sleep, as I said, how we deal with stress, what we're eating, what we're drinking, and topically, what are we putting on our skin? What you got lymph nodes, and it's incredibly part of the immune system, your armpits. What's in your deodorant? That's a huge area that we pull toxins that we didn't even think about. Because the skin, as this, skin's our largest organ, liver's our largest internal organ, but the skin is very permeable to where it's one of the greatest sources for us to detoxify, but it also pulls toxins in as well. So that's, once again, it's a two-way street. So what we put on our skin, what water we drink, what food we eat, what we're breathing, what kind of clothes we're wearing, what's in the laundry detergent, all these things are going to affect your body, and your liver's going to deal with them. So your liver's going to be, besides being the mastermind of detox, it's also in charge of all the vitamins and the nutrients we eat. And, if I have an incredible smoothie and with all these great organic vegetables in it, and I've tried to make sure that there's no pesticides and there's no insecticides and it's non-GMO, yada, yada, inevitably, your small intestine is going to be pulling all those nutrients out. And so your gut lining has to be very important, because if your gut's out of whack, you might have crap absorption, and you're absorbing 5 to 10% of what you're taking. So you got to get your gut biome is incredibly important. And that is completely in sync with liver. So if that is good, what vitamins then come in to the blood, then go to the liver, and the liver then stores them, manages them, and processes them. So there's no organ in the body that's more important for managing your nutritional protein mineral makeup than your liver. That's, once again, it's this mastermind. And in turn, if you've got leaky gut, toxins could be getting into the bloodstream where they're not supposed to be, because you've got openings and your defenses are down, and that gets into the blood, and then your liver is dealing with that as well. So the holistic approach is so important. True holistic approach, you got a physical holistic approach, right? All these organs and what we're doing, but then you've got the mental aspect. How am I dealing with stress? How am I dealing with energy? You've got emotional. How am I dealing with emotions? Am I dealing with them? What are my coping mechanisms? That can affect your biochemistry, and in turn, like a lot of depression comes from your gut as well. So if your gut's out of whack, it can affect that. So you've got to have. So and then you've got the spiritual side. So you've got all these things working together. It's not even as simplistic as saying my physiological holistic approach. It's all these things to try to have balance. And most of this is managed by our subconscious, right? 99% of what I just said, your subconscious is trying to do that for you. That's why we can get into a rabbit hole and we can start obsessing, and then we stress about this, or like, oh my God, am I going to get cancer from this yoga? Like, you got to relax a little bit and just kind of start making cognitive decisions and setting intentions, and then allowing it to flow.
So going back to liver health, define what is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and if that's what we call it these days, versus the fatty liver from alcohol. We used to be called from alcoholism, that it's not just alcohol related, but talk about that. And then I want to go into another question, follow up on that. So what would you say the definition is current?
So we talk to obviously thousands and thousands of patients and people a year. And I would say the biggest misnomer that the population has is that, well, liver's really only affected by alcohol. So I can't tell me hundreds of times a year we'll get, oh, I don't drink, I don't need to check my liver. You have to explain, well, 70% of liver disease today is non-alcohol related. It used to be, back in the 20s and maybe the 50s and 60s, most liver disease was driven by alcohol, because that was the biggest toxin that we were bringing in. But you take, the 70s and 80s to now, we've just added so many chemicals and synthetic appositions and high fructose corn syrup and pharmaceuticals to counteract this pharmaceutical and heavy vaccinations and stuff, is that the liver is just massively, massively overwhelmed. Hence why liver disease is up 400%. Right? Every other disease we're either keeping in touch with population growth, most we're pushing down. Right? But liver disease is like, it's crazy. If you look at a chart, there's a WHO chart, and it goes like this. while all diseases are down here. So, and it's accelerating. So it's not even plateauing at 400%, it's still going. So in the Western world, and actually this applies to China, Iran, India, it's 38% of the population has fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The term they used to use, which was non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFL, that's how they would refer to it. And recently there's been kind of a nomenclature change within the medical community. I'm not as big a fan of it because I think it sounds too technical for the public. And we should be trying to warn everybody about these dangers, not waiting until they're sick. And the new name is basically metabolic dysfunction, acute steatosis hepatitis. So it's called MASLD, right? That's the new name, which basically means you've got metabolic syndrome and you've got excess fat, which is causing liver damage and a form of hepatitis, right? That's very complex. But so if you hear MASLD or NAFLD, it's the same thing. And that's what 38% of the population, that's 120 million Americans are suffering from that. That is the precursor to what's called NASH, or they've now renamed MASH, which is non-alcoholic steatosis hepatitis. And that is basically you've got so much liver fat and dysfunction that you're starting to get scarring, and that scarring and too much collagen buildup, and that's creating scarring, and that scarring is starting to cause massive dysfunction. And that is if you've got NASH or MASH, you're well on your way to potentially liver cancer, cardiovascular disease, cirrhosis, liver transplant. So we very much focus on is the 90% of people that aren't acutely ill or chronically ill, because you can the silver lining in all this is that fatty liver disease is reversible, just like type 2 diabetes is reversible. The medical community doesn't talk about that as much because it's obviously much more profitable to put somebody onto insulin than it is to have them make a radical dietary and lifestyle change. But both you can turn it around, which is, that's what we need. Let's focus on the positives, that even if you have type 2 diabetes and even if you have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, you can reverse it. That's a good part. Metabolic syndrome too. But so this fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic. So 70% of liver disease, non-alcohol related, which people always find fascinating as a fact. And I point out that the highest rate recorded for fatty liver disease is Iran, right? Iran has zero alcohol. And India is very close behind. Most of us, and I think a lot of the hepatological community, think that it's actually higher than Iran. No alcohol as well. So you've got Japan's the lowest, probably because of the diet, but it's also climbing very fast because they're introducing more Western foods. But what's driving it is processed foods, ultra processed foods, fructose, pharmaceuticals, and cheap calories. So you'll see, like if we go into an area lower, like a poverty area or lower income area, the percentage of fatty liver is much higher. And that's because they don't have access to as much organic foods and organic veg, and they're eating cheap calories, like a lot like fast food, right? Cheap calories to people, and that's what's causing all these problems, which is what's driving type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and the cardiovascular disease, right? That's what from a root cause medicine perspective or functional medicine perspective, is you got to get to the root cause, and this is where it's starting. And
so order of operations, you're saying, starts with mostly the food that we're eating. So the processed food, seed oils, I'm sure in there, and that's leading to high insulin, and that's leading to type 2 diabetes, and that's leading to metabolic chaos, and that's leading to the liver, impacting the liver, overwhelming the liver detox pathways, congestion.
You start with the processed foods. So the liver's in charge of dealing with and like helping to manage like insulin and reaction to it and resistance, and all the receptors are on the liver. So actually, processed foods, liver doesn't understand what's happening with all these foreign chemicals it's more of a threat than sugar or fat, right? That's why a diet soda, we're saying, will give you fatty liver disease quicker than regular sugar will. And that is because the liver can process sugars, natural sugars, and fats much better because it's had thousands of years to do that. it doesn't know what aspartame is. It doesn't know what a preservative that's put in a bun that's supposed to make an organic material sit for 3 weeks on a shelf, right? That's what you're putting in your body. So you start to develop more and more liver fat. And as that liver fat builds up, you have less surface area and less receptors to be able to look at insulin. So you start to get pre-diabetic or insulin resistance, and insulin reactivity goes awry. And that is really what starts to happen. And then, so the foundation of metabolic syndrome and the foundation of type 2 diabetes starts with fatty liver.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And
and
you're
then you go
saying
down the
that
route that you said. So I just wanted to, what you said was accurate, but I just want to wedge in the beginning.
an extra.
Fatty liver is driving all that.
So if we don't have any signs and symptoms of our livers getting fatty, what would we do? Knowing I was just in Hawaii for the weekend in Waikiki yesterday, and you walk around. I was only there for like 5 hours, but just walking around for my 30 minutes, you'd observe multicultural area of all this examples of what you just said, people eating and how they might not know. They feel fine, but maybe some brain fog, but of course that's associated with everything. But if we have a fatty liver being developed, how do we know and how to catch that early on?
So one of the things is the doctors aren't really looking for it. So 80 to 90% of fatty liver patients that we see, it's not showing up on your blood panel. Blood panel is going to tell you if your enzymes are off, your liver's stressed, your inflammation, but it's not saying if you've got fatty liver. So you need to do what we very much are proponent for. We do at our clinics. We try to get every other doctor to do it as well. As it's called a scan your liver. Now MRI is very complex. I'm a big fan of a once a year MRI because I want to, God forbid if I got a tumor, I want to see it when it's stage 1, stage 0 and get rid of it, or see cardiovascular disease, symptoms or disease over the horizon. So, but that's expensive and it's uncomfortable, and I wouldn't say it's a pleasant experience. Ultrasound will tell you fatty or not fatty, but it's not a lot of data. We use it's called elastography or shear wave. We tend to use a brand called FibroScan, and that you shoot a sound wave into the liver and vibrations, and it causes the liver to reverberate, and you can map exactly how much liver fat you have, what percentage. Do you have any scarring, and do you have any stiffness? It also captures about 100 times more surface area than a biopsy would, so it's very good for picking that up. We use biopsies, but that's way down the road, and that's more if we're worried that there's cancer. But so blood test, not enough data. Ultrasound, it's not as precise. So shear wave or FibroScan is in the middle. That's really what should be the standard that everybody gets once a year, and that's what we're big proponents of. And then we'll use MRI for confirmation if we need to, or if we're looking for a tumor. But you've got to make sure the MRI is programmed to go deep into the liver. And then you go one stage up, which is the biopsy. But the screening is really the best, and that's what everybody should be doing. The early symptoms of if you've got a really good GP or a doctor, and you haven't had a scan, he'll try to look at things together to give an assessment, like an intuitive, and that is, what's their BMI, what's their ethnicity. That's incredibly important because especially if you're South Asian, you could have a low BMI of 20, but we call skinny fat, which is they get fatty liver 200 to 300% faster than like a Caucasian or an African would. So there's BMI is ethnicity. Cholesterol, high cholesterol could be a sign of fatty liver as well. Are they pre-diabetic? That's a great indicator of potentially fatty liver. And these are all obviously biomarker data. From just the average person cruising around, some of the symptoms are, first symptom is brain fog. The other one is lack of sleep, so bad sleep patterns. More of us are tracking our sleep now. I mean, I wear Oura Ring. A lot of people love Apple Watches. There's different gadgets out there to do that. Bad sleep pattern is one. Then you'll gain weight faster if you've got fatty liver. You will also shed weight slower, right? And I did that amazing test with you, looking at the thing that you do when you track metabolic rate and what's happening for metabolism. That's like super, super cool to be able to do. So tracking that is really important. Then you get farther down the road, you get things like swelling in the feet, yellowing of the eyes or the skin. That's you've got big problems if that's happening. But what most of the people are 40% of the country running around with is going to be brain fog, the weight, and the bad sleep. So those are the ones that we can start to do. And you can look, like I said, it's conscious. You can just sit there and say, okay, take 5 minutes. What am I eating? Right? What am I putting into my body? Like what's in that packet of crisps, or what does my average lunch entail? Or am I, people sometimes think, oh, I'm having a huge salad, I'm healthy, but they're washing it down with like a huge diet soda, right? That's like, ugh, like that's so bad for you.
Yeah.
So hydrated. So these are all things that we can do to look at that aren't, that we need to look at and to check.
I really wanted to do a video yesterday on acai bowls
Yeah.
because I'm walking around and what do people have in Hawaii? For some reason, everyone stands in line for shaved ice is very huge, which is ice and sugar water, flavored water. But the acai bowls, everyone's walking around, and I always want to ask, what's your definition of healthy? Because people think it's healthy because it's fruit and it's locally grown. But to me, my blood sugar would probably go up to 200 if I ate that. And my head would be all headache and eyes would be blurry. I mean, it's amazing that some people don't have the intuition of how make food makes them feel if it
Yeah.
causes any side effects.
And there's so much sugar in. I mean, acai berries by itself they got a nice ORAC score. It's a nice antioxidant, but they're meant to be eaten like dried, right? Like just as a little bit of a snack, and they got some antioxidants, but these ginormous portion sizes,
They're
you just
huge.
got. I mean, the amount of sugar in some of those bowls must be astronomical. Plus some of the
Yeah.
preservatives that kept them in that state as well. In Hawaii too, you'll see like the some of the worst rates of type 2 diabetes are in like Polynesia, right, which is a huge Polynesian Pacific Islander population. And that's because they never developed the enzymes to break sugars down. That's why they blow up. Like the original Samoans were big people, but they weren't like they are now, right? They were just big, stocky, native Hawaiians, which is not many left, but were tall, muscular, like fit people. And then you start bringing all this processed foods and like spam, right? And huge bowls of that's why they've got this epidemic of type 2 diabetes. They're genetically not predisposed to handle that kind of sugar and that type of stuff. And that's why they're blowing up. Like physically, they're just getting so obese. And and obviously with type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease going up as well. And a lot of that was because that was how it's cheap calories, it's prepackaged processed food shipped to them in tins that they're eating on the islands. Which is crazy because if you think about it, like I think the largest cattle ranch in the world or the United States is in Hawaii, right? So they've got local
Big
beef,
Island.
they've got great local
Yeah.
fruit, they've got all this, fresh air. There's so many benefits, but the local population tends to consume processed foods that are shipped from Asia and America, and all the really healthy stuff gets shipped out, except for the fish, obviously, which is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. The friends of ours that are Hawaiian locals for the whole life, and we had dinner with him Sunday night, and he has type 2 diabetes. And he goes to, I know he works out all the time. He's not overweight, but type 2 diabetes. So I was curious about that. So, anyways, off
He
track.
should go get. We don't have a clinic there yet. We're working on it. We might have one with Next Health in Maui at the Four Seasons. We have a partnership with Four Seasons too and Next Health. But if he can, he should really try to get, just as a personal, like as a friend to him, to have him try to go get a scan done. Because if he could very well have fatty liver, and that could be driving the type 2 diabetes, and then you can help him with your knowledge just to reassess his entire nutritional makeup, right?
Yeah.
And then
But
you can turn that around.
with friends, you just kind of say, well, if you'd like help, I have some videos I can share.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm happy to chat with him too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of goes in next question. We're talking about fatty liver and doing a liver scan. How does we hear about liver detox pathways, liver congestion? We have phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3's drainage pathways of liver detox pathways. How does this correlate with fatty liver and the relationship with the two?
So amongst all the thousands of things that the liver's doing, it's also detoxification. It's the main engine for that. We detoxify it in different ways. We can literally breathe out toxins. Is one of our biggest sources of detoxification is the skin. That's helping to get it out. Kidneys are dealing with it as well, but the liver is kind of the main master control board there as well. If your liver's fatty, right, it's going to affect your skin, your hair, your immune system, your responses, your detoxification aspect of it as well. Most people just think the liver is a big detox engine. That's just one of the things it does. And I wouldn't say that's not any more important or less important than controlling your vitamins and your red blood cells and all of that as well. So if the liver gets, the term sluggish is what they use a lot, and that's basically it's not functioning as well.
Mm-hmm.
The liver, the softer and squishier it is, the happier it is, and the more it's functioning. So it'll get bigger and smaller, especially whilst we sleep. About 1 to 3 in the if you're on a normal schedule, 1 to 3 in the morning, it will grow by up to 40% while it's regrowing, coming down. So hydration is very important for liver health. If it starts to get stiff, that's why when we do the scans, we're also measuring for stiffness and scarring, because the softer your liver is, the happier it is. And if it starts to get stiff, it gets sluggish. If it starts to get fatty and stiff, it gets really sluggish. So, or just fatty, it gets sluggish. Because think about it, if it's carrying all this extra fat, its ability to do this and to do its job goes down. Because with detoxification, there's 3 phases to it. There's one which is basically activation. Mm-hmm. So it's identifying because it's dealing with, remember, it's dealing with toxins, but it's also dealing with all the good stuff as well. So it's dealing with both at the same time. And as it's dealing with toxins, it'll start to identify and activate things that are toxic, and it'll start to create enzymatic responses and start to go through its motions of detoxifying you. Then you have phase 2, which is conjugation. And that's where the enzymes are doing their thing and breaking it down, and your oxidizing happens, and oxidizing aspects. You're also making it water soluble. So the toxins are converted into something that's water soluble. So that when we get to phase 3, which is elimination, your body can then get rid of those toxins. And being water soluble, like I said, through sweat, right? That's a great, like sauna, sweat baths, jogging, whatever. Sweating is a great form of elimination, probably one of the best. And then obviously through excretion, through going to the bathroom, those both methods as well of getting rid of toxins, and also certain ones that you breathe out as well. So those are the phases of it, and being sluggish or fatty can diminish its ability to do that.
So do you see any correlation if someone does a liver scan and their liver is not healthy looking and responding as it should in your liver scan? Do you correlate that with any congested liver detox pathways and other clues?
You could look deeper, and then you go into more bloods. That's where bloods would come into, where you're looking at enzymatic responses and what's happening, and that'll give you a clearer picture. But for sure, if your liver's stiff or you've got fibrosis, mm-hmm. your detox pathways and detox functionality is diminished. If your liver is fatty, its detoxification ability is diminished and not as well. So that's just, it's an obvious conclusion. You can go deeper into it. You really wanted to, you could go into MRI to look at it as well. But the liver's regenerating so much. So, if you, let's say, like you're taking a lot of Tylenol, or paracetamol, as we call it in London, one dose of those, 250 mg, causes as much damage as 6 pints of beer. So if you've been really naughty, right, and you're taking a lot of Tylenol, and then you're adding like alcohol to that, and then you're adding like processed foods to that, your liver's like fighting for you, trying to protect you, and it's fighting for its life. It's going to be functioning less. But the cool thing is, if you stopped all that immediately and you started drinking a lot of water and bringing nutrition in and lowering your toxicity, the liver will start rebuilding really quick. If you do a live liver transplant, it's so cool. So let's say somebody's liver is completely shot, we have to pull it. And you can't live without it. So it's not like, you can put somebody under a machine while you're doing a heart transplant or a lung. There's no liver. You got to pull it out really quick and put a new one in. Or they do what's called a live liver transplant, which is where they would, let's say I would donate a third of my liver. That little third would go into you, and that will grow back to a fully double lobed organ and be brand new, and mine will grow back. So crazy. It can handle that. It can handle up to 90% of it being damaged and grow back. So it'll turn around for you really quick. So if you're worried about your pathways, get rid of liver, and getting rid of the liver fat and reducing toxicity are the 2 most important things. So up nutrition, up exercise, down toxins, and start to eliminate fatty liver. And that's really big focus for us as well.
So to give our love to the liver. We want to be preventative, ideally, get the liver scan done. If you can find it locally, how often should we get that done? And then we'll go into solutions.
I think once a year is good. If you're really healthy, maybe every couple of years. If you're overweight, once a year. If you've got South Asian ethnicity, definitely once a year. If you've had your gallbladder removed, once a year. We're part of it. There's a participatory study in Europe that's undergoing, and there's a direct correlation between liver cancer and liver disease and people with their gallbladders removed. It takes years for that to happen, but that study is still undergoing, but it's definitely, I think, the consensus. And so when we scan patients, we always ask them, do you have your gallbladder? So if somebody doesn't, then they should, because the gallbladder is actually, people think it produces the bile. It does a little bit, but it's actually more like a carburetor. So it kind of sits off to the side between the stomach and the liver produces the biles, and then the gallbladder controls how much goes in, and it goes to then break foods down, which really helps you. And if you have your gallbladder removed, you remove that carburetor, and you just now have a constant unregulated flow of bile into the stomach, which is too much. And bile is good in the right circumstance. That's why apple cider vinegar is a great way to kickstart in the morning your bile production for the day, so that you're going to break fatty acids down and digest is better. But once a year, if you've got, we've got somebody who's got fatty liver or fibrosis, we'll scan them, put them under a protocol, usually of de-liver-ance and nutrition, and then we scan again at 3 months or 6 months. And then once they're in the green, once a year, somebody's young, super healthy, once every couple of years, unless they suspect something. But if they're obese, for sure. If they're obese, 90% chance they've got fatty liver. That doesn't mean, so most people that are obese have fatty liver disease, but not everybody that has fatty liver disease is obese. So don't think because you're thin, you may not have something going on underneath as well. That could be genetics, it could be skinny fat, it could be something in your diet as well.
Yeah, I think that's why I think it's so important to work with the practitioner to look at all the data together, because so many people might be exercising a lot, they're fit, and as I would say, healthy on the outside, but inside they're not, and you don't know what you don't know. So I'm always promoting testing and not guessing before you have signs and symptoms of chronic disease. But a lot of people were still trained just to wait until we're ill and then go see a doctor, and then it's kind of almost too late sometimes. So what can we do to take care of ourselves now nutritionally with the right nutrients to help our liver and oxidative stress, mitochondrial health, anything to do with all that?
As I said, first and foremost, be conscious of what you're doing. I very much adhere to, and a big believer, and I think it's the intelligent way, is to practice the philosophy or the paradigm of Eastern medicine, which is you should see a practitioner whilst you're healthy to keep you on the right path. And like a great Eastern doctor you pay them every month, they give you your nutrients, they give you your check on how you are, they give you your herbs and your medicines, what have you. But then if you get ill, they don't charge you anymore until you're better. So, and it's much less expensive and it's more efficient. And, I've told this to insurance companies, and we've talked to the government about this, and we're partners with MAHA, and we're trying to get the US to shift this way. It's much, much, much better to prevent you from getting ill, and cheaper, less expensive, less damaging than to reacting to it later. So having a practitioner you work with, whether it's a fitness coach or a health guru or a dietitian or an Eastern medicine doctor, is very important. Or Western medicine, go get a scan once a year. Like, these are things we can do, depending on within your budgets, to stay healthy, prevent you from illness. And then there are just, what we eat and what we drink. Certain herbs are really good. Certain supplements are lovely. Like I take a nice mineral stack after I eat. I take an ox bile or digestive enzyme before. Because as we get older, our ability to deal with these things goes down. There's a great saying a doctor told me. He said, the first 40 years of your health are for free. The next 40 years you have to earn. So if you want to be healthy from 40 to 80, you have to earn that. So you have to put in the time, the energy, the financial commitment, and be conscious to what you're doing. Because it's, when you're 20, you recover so quickly, you think you're invincible. Time you're in your 40s, you're like, oh, maybe my knee hurts, or I'm gaining weight, or, etc.
True. I know. So going back to sleep is the key, but I always find it interesting the liver clock in Chinese medicine. And you mentioned between 1 and 3 a.m., a lot of people might struggle waking up, and we say that's cortisol dysfunction. But I learned years ago that was also the liver is really busy. So that was a red flag as well, to a clue to something's going on, liver activity, and how it might be beneficial to take something before we go to sleep to help support our liver when it's doing its housekeeping services while we're asleep.
Yeah, because it's such a massive organ, it's doing so much. It does most of its rebuilding while we're sleeping because, when we're running around like right now, we have X amount of energy and it's trying to do everything from their five senses, right? Like taste
Yeah.
and smell and this and what's happening and I'm thinking and da 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 da. When you're sleeping, you're mostly shut down. Obviously, the brain's busy caching memories for the day, but your liver does most of its rebuilding. Um, I like red yeast extract is really good before bed to help with natural cholesterol balance. Magnesium is fantastic to time to take it before sleep because it also helps you sleep better. So I think my wife and I will do a magnesium bath. Like the ultimate sleep for us formula is do a nice bath with magnesium. So you're soaking in it, you're absorbing it through the skin. Magnesium supplement, infrared light by the bed, and a book. And you kind of just wind down and you get into that thing. No phones in the bedroom. That's like probably the worst thing, the most common that people do that disrupt your sleep. Even if it's in airplane mode, it is still somewhat processing and sending out EMFs. So take the phone and leave it in another room. That's probably make sure you've got the appropriate amount of shading so you don't get the light starts kicking in melatonin or not kicking it in. So light's very good. For de-liver-ance, our supplement, our hero supplement, we tell most people the best time to take that is before bed because it rebuilds. Except for women, most of our clients are women. They tend to take it in the afternoon. So a women's
That
circadian
is.
clock. Yep, exactly. So a woman's circadian clock is different than men. Women tend to get an energy lull in the afternoon, usually between like 2 and 5. That tends to be
Yeah.
what we get in feedback. So de-liver-ance has a neurotropic in it. So when you take it, you get like great mental clarity for like 6 hours. So
Mm.
we always tell our women clients, take it when you need it the most, when you need that mental clarity. Obviously, you're taking it for all the health benefits, such as hair and skin and cholesterol and liver function. But it's nice because a lot of our clients, including like Dr. Amati and some really well-known biohackers, they used to do coffee in the afternoon to give them that energy to take through. And whilst coffee is very good for your liver, it is very disruptive to your HRV and your sleep later. So I try to not have coffee. I love coffee, but just after 1 p.m. so
Yeah.
that you're
I'm
not
before
affecting your
12.
sleep. Yeah, yeah,
I
12
gotta
1.
go earlier.
Yeah, exactly. But it is but a lot of people think coffee's toxic. It's actually coffee's like an incredible antioxidant. So it's really good for you too.
So last little bit, I just want to share my screen because I pulled this up trying to go over the de-liver-ance as we talked last year in
Yeah.
Solana Beach, and you gave me some samples, but talk about what is in this shot I have. This is
So
empty because you drank it
you
all.
know, as somebody, so I've done phytomedicine development for 28 years now. De-liver-ance, whilst I made the products, de-liver-ance took 18 years of R&D, and it's 100% plant-based. It's an antioxidant elixir. It's based off of traditional Eastern medicine, so Chinese, Ayurvedic, Korean, but we've combined it with cutting-edge Western medical technology. So how it's bioavailable, what's happening in the blood. We spend millions and millions of dollars on clinical studies and research to see the effect. And I formulate, a lot of formulators just kind of create a formula because the science of what they read about it is good, and here's your product. We actually develop by testing. So we do clinical testing on people as we're developing it. So we've honed it and perfected it to where it's having an end effect. So we're one of the few, I think, biotech or supplement companies and nutraceutical companies to where we actually prove the outcome through the data. So we like to have people take a blood test and a scan before, take the product for 3 months or 6 months, and then test again. So your left brain is going to be seeing all the data and the biomarkers and the proofs in the evidence, but also that neurotropic I told you about, or nootropic that makes you think clearly, your right brain, and you're going to be feeling it as well. So you can feel de-liver-ance when you take it within minutes. And that's because we use nanoparticles, right? Western technology for the plant essences to go right into the blood. So you start to feel really good, mental clarity right away. Within weeks, your skin and your hair get better. And we do that. We were very lucky to be invited by Bobby Kennedy and Maha to the inaugural ball in Washington, D.C. And Del Bigtree, who is one of my heroes, said he takes de-liver-ance every day. And he gave me a great compliment. He says, it's the only supplement I take that I can feel when I take it. So I absolutely love it. So he travels around with it. So that's, I think it's important to have an immediate feel, midterm feel, and the long feel.
Yeah,
But all
you want to know it's working. People feel like they're taking all this stuff, and people say, I don't know if it's doing anything.
yeah, it's not a lot of stuff. I mean, I take it, but it's not a lot you could feel, right? Certain things I'm like certain probiotics are good and postbiotic mixed because you start to feel your digestion's better and less bloaty. Those are good. I'm a fan of I like StemRegen is a really great product that invigorates your body to create its own natural stem cells. That's part of my personal stack. Dr. Drapeau is a friend of mine. He takes de-liver-ance. Some of the tech gadgets, I think it's monitoring is good. Aura Ring's nice. I like it because it's less intrusive than like an Apple Watch. But Aura Ring is nice tracking. Pulsetto's a really cool gadget you put on your neck. I met the founder of it actually when we were with Brian Johnson in Miami, and that stimulates your vagus nerve. That's fantastic, by the way, for stress or anxiety or sleep. That's part of our protocol now, which we really like.
I'm all about that.
Yeah, Aura Ring and Pulsetto both super cool. One's diagnostic and telling you where you're at, and one is very good for chilling you out and before sleep.
Yeah, I've been using Nuvana Life vagal nerve stimulator, and we did a whole 30-day program and using Sweet Beat Life heart rate variability testing because the Oura Ring and Whoop bands don't give you the clear data on the LF to HF and the breakdown of your nervous system. So looking at the raw data, different type of heart rate variability testing, I think is more powerful than the devices on the ring or the finger. You need the heart rate chest strap to actually get the full reading, and then correlate that with a vagus nerve stimulator. And I stack it with breath work or, cold and humming and gargling and all the other vagal nerve stimulation. But I've done lots of videos people can find on my YouTube on the role of the vagus nerve and all these functions we're talking about: liver, digestion, the stomach acid and digestive enzymes, and the small intestine, large intestine. It's pretty fascinating if you go rabbit hole of what gets broken and why, and how chronic stress impacts everything, and not just what we eat, but how we're eating it. If we're eating mindfully or rushing down, how eating a sympathetic nervous state in fight or flight versus rest and digest parasympathetic is going to impact the whole chain of events after that. So
yeah,
vagus nerve is amazing.
I'm going to watch some of your podcasts. I'm just learning about the vagus nerve more and more. So I'd love to check out the device that you're using as well and compare. But it's a new area for me, but it's absolutely fascinating. I mean, 5 years ago, nobody knew what the vagus nerve was.
Well,
you might have, but most of the population doesn't.
10 years ago, I did Ben Greenfield at a one and only Superhuman Coach conference. And that's when we met with Sweet Beat Life, Rhonda Collier, and we learned about heart rate variability. And I was doing my adrenal exhaustion, whatever you want to call it, happened then. And so I was doing testing back then, but not really understanding, how to improve the resiliency and the role of the vagus nerve, and just how everybody I talk to now, any interview, I'm going to ask them, how's the vagus nerve playing a role here? Because even with Martha Carlin, I have lots of videos. We've been diving into Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, and how you work your way backwards and the impact of chronic stress, but what that does to the vagus nerve and how it's connected. And that's why I'm curious if this non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or liver health is going to be impacted by a poor vagal tone.
Very cool. That's one thing we haven't looked into. I'm going to start going down the rabbit hole of vagus nerve and vagal tone with liver health as well.
I'll get into it with you sometime. I was working on this podcast talking to you, and it's like, wait, I bet this has a role in it. If you look at what the vagus nerve stimulates and what it activates and how it has to be parasympathetic. Yes, it's a food we eat, but what is the role of poor vagus nerve, vagus tone, low heart rate variability, but more sympathetic dominant nervous system state, and how it's all connected if you zoom out to zoom in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So amazing. Well, let's wrap up on where people can learn about getting liver scans. And if they want to look at liver deliverance, can you tell us where to learn more and try it out?
I start with, so loveyourliver.com is our main website that has all the
Mm.
information and stuff about deliverance, or phytomedicine. There's also a link on there for the liver clinic. Whilst we have 7 clinics in the UK, we're just now opening them in the US. I think we've got one, we do a lot of pop-ups, but we've got one in two in Orange County, one in South LA, and we're opening in Next Health. So Hollywood, Nashville, and New York this year, plus Louisiana. So we're opening more and more. But send us an email because we can also help just guide you somewhere locally where you're at. All of our team are nutritionists or dietitians or a practitioner in some way. So always happy to answer questions in chat. The proof's in the pudding with the product. It's amazing. That's why we've been very blessed to have write-ups in Vogue, GQ, Times, New York Times, Financial Times, Wired, Harper's Bazaar, Country Townhouse. Those were all organic because journalists had used the product and felt that it was noteworthy enough to write an article about it. And then we're doing partnerships with cool brands like yourself, Four Seasons, Peninsula Hotels, Six Senses Spas, Next Health, and we're on all the shows. Do a lot of biohacking conferences or health optimization summits as well, and A4M. Those are all really good for us.
You guys are at conferences and conferences all over the world, I must say. You're
Yeah,
never in one place.
yeah,
You're really busy and following your mission.
yeah, exactly.
It's good.
We're saving the world one liver at a time.
Yeah. And how are you taking care of your own health and keeping yourself healthy with all this travel and traveling different time zones and moving place to place?
I gave you kind of our sleep
Yeah,
stack, which is
that's
really
key.
good. I take Deliverance every day. I take Stem Regen. My wife's a nutritionist as well, so we have a very balanced diet. Lots of good hydration, good water, mitigate toxins. And then, if I fly, because there's a lot of radiation when you fly, so I take a lot of vitamin C before. I'll do 1,000 milligrams before. It's a long haul. I'll take another one about 6 hours in from a protective standpoint. Sleep, meditation, try to low stress as you can. As I said, sleep is stress. I'm a big fan of naps. So if your sleep's not good, get a nap. 30 or 45-minute nap is transformative.
Yeah,
And we exercise every day. So we try to go hiking as much because it's better to be outside. You're getting the vitamin D, all the fresh air, especially if it's in nature, like the energy. If we're in the forest, we'll hike in the forest and forest bathe. If not outside, and then I'll try to do like an hour and a half of cardio and weight, especially with weight training is so important, especially if we get older. And especially if you're anywhere near GLP-1, you've got to go heavy protein. I don't do GLP-1s, but you've got the warning to people, if you do them, you've got to get enough protein in it because up to 70% of your weight loss can be muscular, and that'll eventually be replaced with fat. So if you do those Wegovy, Mounjaro, Ozempic, what have you, got to do muscle training, weight training, and you've got to be heavy protein diet.
Yeah, amen. That is for sure. I just was commenting on an article LinkedIn. If you look, there's one going around yesterday on we've been talking about this for the last year. It's so essential to do the strength training and protein prioritization. And that's why I was trying to pitch people to do my Pinoy metabolism testing. If you're using those drugs, you need to get the resting metabolic rate test done every 2 months to make sure you're doing everything you can do to not slow your metabolism down. It should be increasing, and we don't need to say, oh, this is a side effect or I'm getting older, my metabolism's slower. It's actually figuring out what you need to add in to improve that metabolism for sure.
Absolutely. So metabolism tracking like you do is paramount to proper weight management and health management. Mm-hmm. Just like if you're doing HRT or hormone therapy, you have got to get your liver checked first and get your liver. Mm-hmm. Some of these top hormone doctors we work with, they won't even start you on HRT until they made sure your liver's functioning really well. Then they start it, because if your liver's not functioning really well, you could have all kinds of side effects and other aspects that aren't good. And the efficacy of the hormone therapy could diminish dramatically. So liver function is tied very much to that too.
I did a video on that, and you guys make sure you listen to that, because I just had my blood work done and I'm doing a liver protocol for myself because my I'm 53 and my estrogen is really high, and that doesn't mean I'm high estrogen. It's a sign that my liver is congested. So don't think you're low estrogen because you're perimenopause. That test and not guess before you start taking hormone replacement, because everything needs to be in balance, and you have to fix your liver before you start doing any protocol as a parasite or bacteria program. But especially for hormone, as you just said, that's huge tip there, to test before you start taking any supplement or do any protocol.
Yeah,
Liver first.
absolutely.
All right. Well, I gotta run, and I know you have a busy day too. So I thank you, and I'll do a follow-up of just any information we missed up and dive in a deeper rabbit hole and how this connects with the vagus nerve and
Yeah, I'm excited.
stress.
I'm going to dive into that tonight.
Watch out. I go down very deep rabbit holes. I don't know if anyone else appreciates it but myself. Thank you for
Nice.
listening.
I do.